Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Doris MANGRUM, your host, and this is Education in Our Community. Now, you all who are always watching the show, our standard viewers, are familiar with the Education in Our Community series, and you know that it just might have a little bit of anything happening. But today we're fortunate to have in the studio a member of one of our iconic Bay Area families, Mr. Wayne Forrest Wilson. He's going to share some very interesting stories about the family and tell us a lot about himself as well. So thank you for being with me today, Mr. Wilson. I'm so happy that you could make it.
I'm glad to be here.
So why don't we just move right into it, because you've got such an amazing story. Tell us a bit about your background and your family's background and your connection with the Bay Area.
Well, my family moved to Oakland about 1858. And we've been Oakland residents ever since. I will admit I tried to move away every chance I got, but eventually I realized that this is probably the best place to be.
There's no place like that.
And my father is Stan Wilson. He's a famous calypso singer. He's in the Oakland Museum of History for Music. Mm-hmm. And my family is enshrined in the Oakland Black History Museum here in Oakland. Auntie is Jerry Lange. She was one of the first black women to be a newscaster on local television. Her son is Ted Lange, famous for Bartender Isaac and Love Boat. Mike Lange, another son, was one of the great iconic producers and directors here in the Bay Area.
Yes, yes.
And my family has really been enshrined in just about everything you could think of around here, as well as because they've been involved in almost everything.
From 1858, did you say?
From 1858 to today.
Amazing.
We're still here.
So someone from the family has been continuously living in the Bay Area for those...
Almost 100 years.
Plus, 100 plus. Yeah. Anyway, so now you talked about wanting to get away and finding yourself coming back. Tell us about one of the first times you got away. What happened in your early years, in your first getting away, if you will, from the Bay Area?
Well, my first big move came when I went to college. Okay. I was going to go to Washington University to play basketball, but back then it was the Pac-8 and it was pretty boring. So then I saw an NAIA game, and I decided that's where I needed to be. So I went to St. Martin's University.
Okay.
And from there, I bounced around trying to find a pro team to land on. But I admit today I was one of those athletes that touted to be great, but I didn't want to listen to anybody.
Okay.
And I had the wrong attitudes. So eventually I had to come back here to the Bay Area, where I then got into work at Juvenile Hall, which later became the Justice Center.
Okay. And
I worked there for 30 years. And I became senior supervisor. Okay. And I retired in 2007.
All right, 30 years. Tell me about those 30 years. I'm very curious about Juvenile Hall when you talk about corrections and youth and corrections, even in adults and all of that. So tell me about your work at Juvenile Hall. What were some of the key positions that you held and the type of work that you did during those 3 decades?
I started off as just regular staff, and that is pretty much a guard, where you just see the inmates through their day. And needless to say, at the time, those days, Oakland was probably the drug capital of the world. And it also had the bad reputation of being #1 in the United States for murder. So we had a lot of high-profile cases.
This was in the, what decade are you referring to?
Early 80s.
Early 80s, okay.
Early 80s. And one of the most interesting things I did was take these high-profile cases back and forth to court or to funerals or that kind of thing. And I always found that very, very interesting.
What would you say in those 30 years? Everybody has a story from something that sticks out in your mind. What was probably the most memorable thing that you can take from those 30 years of work? It might be a story, it might be something that the work changed your life, you met someone who was the unforgettable person. Is there something that you can share with us that is that unforgettable piece about those 30 years that you think you'll never forget?
Well, a lot of things I'll never forget, but I do say that when you work in law enforcement, one of the first things it does is gives you a great deal of confidence, above and beyond the average person. Another thing it does, it makes you relaxed talking in front of people. It's easy to do, which a lot of people find hard to do. And the biggest thing of all, it gives you insight into people. You can almost tell immediately when they're lying to you.
That's so true.
All these skills it gave me really helped me in life.
Now, do you think that you got these skills as a result of your training or as a result of your on-the-job experiences?
Most on-the-job experience. Of course you go through training, but as anybody knows, when you're trained, you forget a lot until you're actually involved in it.
And for me, when I think about the training versus actual hands-on, there's only so much the book and so much the training can teach you. There's going to be those experiences that are outside of the realm, and then we're actually meeting real people and real stories and how you interact. One thing that was key that you said earlier was that it gave you the ability to feel comfortable with all types of people and speaking in front of people. And where do you think that came from?
That just comes from experience, because every day you have to address large groups of people who, A, don't want to listen to you, and B, might even be plotting to hurt you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I became a supervisor, I tried to teach staff how important it was to get them out and talk to them as a group. And of course, nobody liked that at first, but you quickly understood that if you did that, something would reveal itself to you. There was a problem, who's going to act out, who's what. So by doing that talking in that group, you begin to be able to feel out who's who in it. And again, that just helps you later on. When you're talking to whoever, even talking to a family member, you can immediately begin to say, oh no, that's not what you're telling me now.
Come on.
That's not going to work.
One of the things I think I've gleaned in similar work, and not actual correction, but correctional education, but working with the same population, was finding that you get to be a better judge of character of people.
Right.
And you're able to, like you said, they're studying you, but you also, to be on your guard, must study as well to make sure that you're safe, and that it's going to be that thing that you're going to make sure that, I better be careful around this particular person. This is one who's trying to be tough, who in actuality has really got a soft spot. But as you were talking about, getting to touch their humanity is so important. Now, is there a particular specific story that you can tell from those 30 years that is something that wouldn't be revealing, but yet would be interesting to our viewers in terms of the work that you did? Something that maybe happened that was actually an event that occurred or a happening that occurred?
Well, I think one of the first big events that happened that really made people in law enforcement begin to look at me as somebody as, wow, that's, you understand a lot, was there was a big robbery inside the institution, and they were lining everybody up to, we have to question them, sort them out, and have questions on them. So I said, look, just stand them there. We don't need to say, just stand them all there. So they did. They listened to me and they did that. And as I stood there watching them, I noticed one of the guys was just like, he's not paying any attention. Because usually in an institution, when something's unusual going on, they're all going to be very attentive. So right away I explained to the group why they were out, what we were about to do, and then I said, isn't that right, Mr. Jack? The name of the guy, I'm not going to say his real name.
Right, okay.
He said, isn't that right, Mr. Jack? And the minute I said that, everybody else went, oh, wow, you got him. How'd you know?
How'd you know?
The
Wow.
inmates.
Yes.
They're like, wow, how did you pick him out like that? Of course, I never told them. But from then on, the respect that you have amongst them eases your whole career.
Absolutely.
They
you
always said,
you get rep, as they say.
So from then on, it was like, when Mr. Wilson's around, you better be cool.
Wow, what a great story. What a great story. And obviously helped you to stay there those 3 decades.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting profession, but beyond that, I realized at one point, I like this. I like what I'm doing. And that's important with whatever you do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's segue now because there's another very interesting piece about your life that I'd like you to share with our viewers. You happen to be an author, and your book is Heaven's Nectar. Wonderful book that Mr. Wilson's going to tell us a little bit about now. So when did you move into the world of authorship, and what took you there? What was that thing that said to you, it's time?
Well, when I was little, I was always an avid reader, and I just loved to read and being able to go into another thought process or another world even. So it was something I always wanted to do. And once I retired in 2007, I was determined, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
And one of my subjects that I really loved in college was history. And World War II, chief among them. And in studying that, I realized there was a battle on an island called Peleliu that nobody really knew about. And it just so happened to be one of the worst battles in the Pacific War. And as I tried to research it, I couldn't find much about it. And we all know about Guadalcanal, Okinawa, Iwo Jima. And at the time, the United States had what they called island hopping. Instead of going island to island, you just hit one island and pass all the others and jump ahead. So Peleliu is an island that's isolated all by itself, and it turned out that the Fifth Fleet was about to invade Philippines, actually stopped, turned around, and went back to Peleliu when they didn't have to, and got involved in a battle that they thought would take 2 days, took 2 months.
Wow.
With over 8,000 casualties.
Wow.
So when you read history, it just says that it didn't need to happen. They didn't need to go there. And so my book became the story of why they did it.
Okay.
What made the United States Navy turn around and go back to an island they didn't have
and
to.
then lose 8,000.
And lose 8,000 people in the process.
Oh, as I'm listening to you, I'm fascinated because I've never heard of it till that moment that you just spoke it. And then to hear that there were that many casualties involved and my not being aware of it ever happening. In terms of the length of time it took you to do the research and actually get it to print, what was that process like?
Well, I'm about to have another book come out now called Tales from the Mind Park, which I'm really proud of mainly because I learned from this one what to do and what not to do. And pretty much like my sports career, I treated the first book like that. I didn't listen to everybody, what they said. As a result, you have to understand that writing is a lot of hard work.
Yes.
And at the time, I didn't quite understand that. I was lucky to have a lot of people behind me who helped me through the process. But this time, I'm able to, I got all the right equipment, got all the right people. And when I did Heaven's Nectar, I didn't expect it to jump out as big as it did, as fast as it did. So I was unprepared for it.
Okay.
So this time I'm fully prepared and ready for what happens.
So now, you said you prepared for this next book. So are you prepared to share us a nugget about what it's going to be about?
It's a bunch of short stories.
Okay.
That cover a wide range of human experience.
Oh, okay.
And it's been highly touted already from test readers.
Excellent.
And I'm extremely
So when can we expect this? In the next 6 months?
Within the next 6 months.
Excellent, excellent. So now, in terms of availability, where can our viewers pick up a copy of Heaven's Nectar?
You can get it at Barnes & Noble, off Amazon. It was on Kindle, and I'm not sure if it is still or not, but you can get it on almost any website.
Okay, are you still in the process of doing book signings and lectures about your book? Because this is a topic that, well, I don't think I'm, the world's, wealth of knowledge, but I'd like to think that I would have heard of, say it for me again,
Peleliu.
Peleliu. I may have been familiar with it, so I would venture to say there are many who are not. So do you do lectures and book signings?
Well, I went through all that already, so not anymore.
Oh, you're done with
I've
it?
done all that. Yeah.
So if someone asked because they're interested today, even though you don't normally do it, would you be willing to?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, all
Certainly.
right, all right. Well, let's go back then to your family life in terms of what you can remember, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who are watching who are familiar with members of your family that you named. You named Stan Wilson, you named Michael Lange, Jerry Lange, Ted Lange, iconic family. What are some interesting tidbits about family life that would be fun for our viewers to be aware of, that they may not be? Those wonderful things that happen in family that would be like something that would be neat to share.
Well, when my father died in 2005, and he lived in Berkeley at the time, and as I said, he's a world famous musician. So I took my son with me to take property out of his apartment.
Okay.
And while I was doing that, my son found a CD from my father's music. So he asked me, could he have it? And I said, sure, you can have it. So we went home that night and immediately went upstairs to his bedroom with the CD, closed the door, and I went by later and I heard it. I heard him, he's playing it, he's listening to it. That morning he got up, totally different kid. And he said, Dad, this is what I want to do.
Wow.
I want to be in show business.
Wow.
So he went to college. He graduated from LA University, not UCLA, but East LA University. And he was lead singer in Grand Angel for about 3 or 4 years. He then got into acting. He was one of the stars in NBA 2016. He was in Spike Lee's movie Chirac. He's been in the movie, he was a star in the movie Asteroids versus Earth. And he also did Ooga Booga.
Okay. So the turning point was...
Oh, and I just want to also say that just before Mikey died, one of the last things he did was star in a movie called Gina's Journey. And he did this with my son.
Wow.
My son played a younger version of Mike Lange, who played the version of a slave, Gregory Hines, and the story is about his life.
Wow.
And when they put the movie together and the directors and everybody are doing the review of the movie, they looked at my son and said, you look exactly like a younger version of Mike Lange playing the older version of your characters. And my son said, well, we're family.
Nobody knew. Oh my goodness.
Nobody knew it. So that
How cool
was just such a moment.
And this all began from gathering things at your dad's place. Now, was your son familiar with, he knew your dad's background, or did he not? Not really. So this was not only eye-opening, but life-changing as well.
For him, yeah. Once he realized, who my father was and what he did, and it just changed him.
What a legacy. I mean, that in and of itself is a major story. I mean, I don't know if he puts it in print in his, in his bio, but how he came into this work. But that's an amazing story. Do you have another good one that you'd like to share? Family piece?
Well, my daughter, she's a very beautiful girl, and so she's been into dancing and modeling and all of this, and she just got back from New York doing a show there. I don't know if she wants me to say this, but she wants to do exotic dancing also. And of course I'm behind her 100%, but I try to explain to her, it's not like I can go to your show and say, wow, I love that. But she's doing great, so, and I'm really proud of my children.
Okay. Well, now we're going to kind of all over the place because you have such an extraordinary life and you've done so many wonderful things that I think our viewers would be very interested in knowing more about. You have the gift of height, as I have the gift of height. But you said something about your basketball years that caught my ear. You said, I didn't listen. You said, whatever. You didn't say big head. That was not the words you used, but you indicated that you wanted to do it your way. If there were some, the basketball and the sports world now is big time. I'm sure it's changed a lot since you were there. But there are some things that will be consistent in terms of being successful in anything. Could you share for maybe some of our youth or someone who's segueing from maybe youth basketball to high school or high school to college, college to pro, some nuggets that may be helpful for them because they're young? And sometimes the better you are at something, the less likely you are to think that you need to listen because you're skilled at the sport. Could you share some nuggets of life truth that would be valuable that you may have gleaned from what didn't happen because of the choices that you made?
Well, one of the things I remember that I wish I had really paid attention to that I didn't at the time was, I remember getting ready for a game, and one of the guys from the other team, really a famous player named Archie Clark, and he came over to me and he said, I've watched you, you've got a lot of talent, et cetera, et cetera. He said, so I'm going to tell you something that you need to know, that the day before a game, you live for that game. Everything you do is for that day. And turns out that's pretty much everything that you're going to do in life. If there's something that you really want to do, and like coming to this show, for instance, the day before I finally took his advice. You prepare for that day. And so, and after he told me that, years later, it really applied to almost everything I did. Retirement, days at work. If you're not prepared for the next day, that next day can be pretty bad.
Wow, that's a major nugget.
Yes.
And that one will serve you whether you're grade school, middle school, high school, all throughout life. Be prepared. It's that Boy Scout model.
Yes.
But just segueing it into everyday life, prepare for the day. Live in, the way they're saying it now is be present, but also be prepared for what's coming. So, in basketball and in life, there are so many things that line up. You learn teamwork. I guess you learn teamwork. You're going to tell me whether or not you learned teamwork. You might have been a showboat. I don't know. You're going to tell me whether or not you learned teamwork. You learn the value of accomplishing something and looking back at it and saying, wow, we did this, or wow, I knew we could and we have. What would be a nugget in terms of that line, if you will? You told me about being prepared in terms of the working with others. What did you glean from that? And maybe even from your work in corrections, something about working with others and what might be a golden nugget of truth for our viewers as well.
Well, it's really pretty simple, and that is just sharing. You have to include people in your life, and you have to share with them. And if you do that honestly, then, it helps you. They respond to you. And I wasn't a showboat, but I did think, I did think I knew everything. And so early on, like as you said, when you think that, you tend not to share. You tend to just either command or take over. And people will resent that.
Absolutely. Because they're already resenting the fact that you're probably a better player.
Yeah, even if you're better than them, even if you're in charge already,
yes,
they will resent that.
Yes, so there's a certain way and a certain way that you need to carry yourself, not just on the court, but also the way you carry yourself off the court as well. Now, with this extraordinary life, these amazing things that you've done, the book, the basketball, the years of correction, what's on the horizon for you? And in terms of, I know you're talking about the new book. What else do you have planned for the years ahead? We're rolling into the end of our time, so make sure that you tell our viewers what you're going to do, because you've already done so much. What's left?
Well, people always ask me, even when I first retired, well, what are you going to do next? And I said, well, I'm going to do what I'm best at. I'm good at nothing. And that's what I love to do.
Well, that gives you room for everything, though.
That gives you, when I want to go fishing.
Absolutely.
When I want to take a trip. The things I want to do, that's what it's all about now. Just doing what I want to do.
So retirement then has been exciting for you.
Very exciting.
Yeah, for those people who are out there saying, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself now because I'm retired, there's nothing to do. How do you make the something out of nothing? Because you said the nothing was important.
It's thinking that you have to do something, which can be harmful.
Yeah.
It's thinking that I have to do this, I have to get into this, I have to work at another job.
Powerful.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
The thinking that you have to do something.
Yeah, just if you go out on a porch and sit down on a nice warm day and do nothing but sit there and think about the beauty of life you're living. You don't have to get out there and do everything or do, what other people want you to do.
I love that philosophy, and I see it threaded through in some of the things you said throughout your life. Even with the example you gave in corrections, where you said, "Don't have them say anything; just let them stand there."
Yeah,
kind of the nothing of standing will give themselves away.
They'll give themselves away. It's hard for a lot of people to do nothing.
Yes.
It's hard to do that.
Yes.
But in doing that, you really begin to learn yourself. And if you can feel yourself, you can live.
You need to consider, Mr. Wilson, doing a book on quotes and philosophies and life stuff. And is that new book, part of that, going to be some of these nuggets of truth that you're spouting to us today?
Well, I had a saying, and that is, never let an ostrich tell you how to fly.
Okay.
Even though it is a bird.
Okay.
So, people have to find themselves. I don't like telling people exactly, do what I do, follow what I follow. But I do believe that, if you know yourself, you'll find your way.
So in that I heard, know yourself.
Yeah, know yourself. And you do that by just being, just encompass yourself. Just
being comfortable.
Being comfortable, sitting on the porch and just relaxing, doing nothing.
Say that you said one more time about how life evolves so beautifully when you don't do anything, when you don't have to do it, when you do nothing, when you think you have to do something. How did you say that again? You don't feel like if you have to do something. If you feel like if you sit around by yourself and you feel like you have to do something, I'm not being productive. I'm not accomplishing. But if you're enjoying life, then you are accomplishing. I think that's a great place for us to wind up our show today. We're coming to the end. You have been a fascinating guest. I am so excited about what you're doing, what you have done, and you have given such amazing nuggets of truth to our viewers today. So I thank you again for having been with us. For those of you that have watched and heard Mr. Wilson, remember his book, Heaven's Nectar. Look for his new book that's going to be coming out. And perhaps he said he's interested. He would come and do a lecture for you. He would come and do a book signing, even on the book that he's done before. So I'm going to close as I always do and say to you, go out, make this a great day. Understand that doing nothing when you think you have to do something could be the change in your life. So go out, make this a great day. Do something good for someone else.